let's just talk shit and figure this out. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to just get started, and I'd encourage you guys pipe up anytime because we'll do this. I don't know. First off, I'd like to just hear what your backgrounds are before I start in. I'll tell you a bit about what my background is in the legal space, and then I'll jump right into some of the things that I've learned, which I think are very valuable in building practices. So Indrajit, you were mentioning, but what, just now that we have 5 people on, why don't you go ahead, tell me what your practice is about in like 5 lines or less.
So my main practice area are family law and real estate. I have done real estate, you can say from 7 years. I was assisting other lawyers. I worked as a legal assistant.
And how long has your practice been open?
It's just 10 months.
Okay. Taha, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself just very quickly before we begin? We're doing this a bit differently. This is going to be a bit of a smaller group. You have to unmute yourself.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm a solo practitioner. I just started out about approximately a year ago, a little less than a year. I started off primarily just doing real estate. Now I am doing a little bit of civil litigation. So kind of, I do a lot of immigration. I have extensive experience in immigration in my previous places that I worked. But when I started off as a solo, I started focusing on real estate. I learned a lot of real estate all by myself because I never worked with a real estate lawyer. I didn't work at a firm. So I kind of taught myself everything. And so it's just, I don't have a lot of case files. I don't take a lot. It's just more or less referral based. So a lot of my work just comes from family and friends and like friends of friends. So it's kind of, it gives me the flexibility to really understand a file, take my time with it, but not high volume. I'm still learning and understanding just, it's a lot from so many different perspectives. And then also just going solo. So just trying to, because I don't have an assistant, I don't have a clerk. So I'm just doing everything.
We'll talk about all that as well today.
Perfect.
Amazing. Thank you, Ta. Melanie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a couple of 1 or 2 sentences, and how many years out you are and what you practice in.
Okay, so I was called 2 years ago, 2020, basically. And at first I decided, okay, let's see what's on the landscape in terms of applications. Wasn't getting any responses back. So I said, okay, let me try the solo thing. And again, like Taha, low volume referrals from family and friends, primarily real estate, some family uncontested divorce, that kind of thing, and wills.
Got it. Very good. And Ritika, welcome. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, where you are right now, how many years out, and what your practice areas are? You have to unmute yourself. No? Okay, fine. If you want to join in, or iPhone, I'm not sure who you are. If you want to join in as well, you're welcome to. I'm going to get going. Okay. So just so you know my background, I have run quite a few businesses, including substantial legal practices. The most substantial was I started and ran until 2018 Access Law, which is the one that was partnered with Walmart and Loblaws and whatever it is. We did about, I don't know, about 20,000 files or so, 25,000 files or so in about the last 5 years that I was there. A lot of real estate, a lot of wills, consumer-driven firm. Currently run my own firm. We do about 100 deals a month or so, just with a couple of clerks, and it just kind of runs itself, and I build other businesses. So why are we doing this? What are we here to talk about? Well, there's a lot of lessons that you get when you kind of go through and build your own firms that I wish people had told me when I was starting out. That took me a long time to learn. So I'm glad you guys are here and figuring this out. I have a list of things I want to talk about. And so with your permission, I'm just going to start hitting them out. And I have slides for a couple of them, but let's just talk. So first, it is critical that firstly, you understand yourself. being a lawyer is not enough. Being a lawyer who practices in an area that you understand yourself to specialize in is the critical component. No, I didn't say you have to be a specialist in it. You can't be. You've been out there for a year or two. Every question is going to be new. I know everyone feels like I graduated law school and now everyone looks at me and therefore I must know everything, but you don't know everything. In fact, it takes you 5-6 years before you actually figure out what's what. And it's an impossible thing. And it involves a lot of, I'm sorry, I don't know, let me think about this and get back to you. Or alternatively, it's beyond my scope. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing because you're setting up as the answer and you often don't have the answers. And that's something that every person goes through as they're starting up their new practice. But still, identifying what it is you want to specialize in is really very critical. And it's worthwhile mentioning that in planning for what your practice is about, it's all well and good that you say, I do real estate and I do family, but there's a diversity, there's a wealth of difference in how one person practices real estate versus how another person practices real estate. As an example, I've run a couple of, I'm going to bring up 2 businesses, one I presently run and one I ran before. So I'm a real estate broker as well. When I was a real estate broker, I decided that what I wanted to specialize in, I knew nothing about it, but I realized that there was a niche opportunity in the food court business. And I realized that Amazon was just on the cusp and people were like, oh God, Amazon's coming in. What can we do to differentiate ourselves? And so the Cadillac Fairviews and the Oxfords and everything else basically said, aha, we can do food. And so they started pouring millions of dollars into their food courts. So I approached Oxford and I made a website and I basically said, all I do is food and I bring regional diversity to food courts. And then I started marketing the hell out of regional diversity to food courts. And I actually started representing as a broker and then a lawyer, all these different restaurant brands that you probably now know of in the city, like Big Smoke Burger and Copacabana Restaurant and Buster's Fish and Chips and Urban Herbivore. I could go into it, but I basically did the Eden Centers Food Court and Yorkdale's Food Court and a bunch of others, all because I had an idea, all because I didn't say, hey, I'm a real estate broker. I said, no, I'm a real estate broker that focuses and specializes in food. I didn't know the first thing about it. I remember the first contract that came, I didn't understand what half the terms were. I futzed my way through it and pretended, and I learned. And that's the kind of the way it works. And my point in saying this is that there are effectively 3 different ways that you as a new lawyer can pick what area your business wants to service. Either you can service underserviced markets, you can have a unique idea, or you yourself can have unique attributes. Let me talk about all 3 points. So it's very possible for you to service underserviced markets as a business idea. I just brought one up as an example, the food court aspect. But when I was starting out Access Law, the underserviced markets were those people who needed lawyers that were accessible on their hours. So there was a whole slew of people who were not getting legal services because lawyers at the time I set it up, which was 2012, were 9 to 5. And here in Loblaw Walmart, you'd be open 7 days a week until 8 p.m. It was an underserviced market that we realized we could pick up on. That's different, by the way, than a unique idea, right? Like a unique idea is where you basically say, hey, actually, let me stick with underserviced markets. Underserviced markets can also be new and developing technologies. So those people who want to focus in on artificial intelligence at the present time. Well, artificial intelligence wasn't around until 2011 when Geoffrey Hinton invented it. And even then, the commercialization of artificial intelligence has only just begun. I watched a lot of my friends become very wealthy, choosing to go ahead and specialize in Bitcoin, not because there's any underlying good to Bitcoin, but because Bitcoin was the big thing. And before that, it was marijuana. Ask Chad Finkelstein down at Dale Lessman. He built an entire practice on the basis of marijuana regulation and helping people actually establish the thousands of stores that are around. Because these are underserviced markets because they are businesses that are coming to the fore and lawyers aren't there to service. All of those things are excellent because they differentiate you. Similarly, you can have unique ideas. Unique ideas can involve unique pricing ideas, unique service models, but what it does is it sets you aside from the competition. So again, let's use the Access Law model. A unique idea should be, at the time that we did this, and actually we took it from a previous lawyer, so let me give credit where credit is due, to Jane Harvey, flat fee pricing. Now, I know the flat fee pricing is now all the rage in real estate, but the unique idea was, thank you very much, we're going to flat fee this puppy and offer the service. And at the time, that was a differentiator because it was a unique idea. What most lawyers do, though, is they don't do any of that, and which is fine. You don't need to. Instead, what they focus on is the unique attributes that make them special. And that's fine too. So you can basically say, listen, I have compassion, or I have the ability to really pay attention to your files, or I'll stick with you through the hardship, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's fine if you're doing that. My point in saying pick your business is not for you to simply have a one-off session where you say, aha, this is what I am. My point is pick your business and then build your business around that facet. Never let it go. Access Law was about accessibility. It was in our name. We're going to talk about branding in a minute. And as a result, it answered a whole series of questions that we had about ourselves. Should we be open 7 days a week? Of course, that's more accessible. Should we be open in Walmarts and Loblaws? Of course, that's more accessible. I mean, these seem obvious to you now, but the whole idea was, our unique proposition was consumer law done right. Law made easy was our tagline. Still is, I'm just no longer part of it. Law made easy was the tagline. So how do you make law easy? Well, you give people flat fee approaches. You make yourself available at all times. You make yourself available at different locations in geographies that work for you. Okay, we're all virtual now. That wasn't the way it was. But you have to stick true to the unique attributes that you have chosen as part of your business. It's critical. Does that make sense? Just in terms of an angle? Yeah? Okay. Let me talk about a second. I'm just talking about the things you need to pick when you're setting up first. Let me also talk about picking your business partner. I'm going to share my screen for a second, and I want to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about jelly beans. This isn't mine. This is from a famous book called Wisdom of the Crowds. And so I wish I came up with this, but James Surowiecki came up with this. So do you know what the best way to figure out how many jelly beans are in a jar is? Who wants to guess? I mean, it should be obvious to you. What's the best way to figure out how many jelly beans are in a jelly bar? You pour it out, you count it, right? I mean, that's very obvious. That way you know for sure. Okay, good. But you know what the quickest way and most effective way of figuring out how many jelly beans are in a jar? The quickest and most effective way of doing it is actually something different. You assemble a group of about 100 people, and I've done this, by the way. I teach down at Ryerson Law, and I've done this as an experiment. You gather 100 people in a class, and you say how many jelly beans are in the jar. And then they all have a guess. You tally up their guesses, and you divide by the number of people who guessed. And you will be right to within 98% almost all the time. Now, why did that work? That worked because everyone's guess consists of the right answer and a degree of error. With enough people, degrees of error cancel themselves out. Basic statistics. Now that's interesting, but what's really interesting is what James Surowiecki says next. Because if you gather a bunch of architects into a room and you ask them to look at the jar, the likelihood is that they will not hit the 98th percentile. Similarly, a group of musicians. In fact, the only people who really do hit the near perfect rate are when you have a diversity of opinion. Why? Well, because architects are trained to see the world in a certain way. So are musicians, so are others. And as a result, you know the degree of error that's canceling itself out? Well, if everyone is making the same error, then it doesn't cancel out. So what does this have to do with partnerships? Well, that should be obvious. The people you choose to go into business with, it's great that you're friends with them, but it's even better if there's a diversity of opinion. If there is diversity, there is success. When party X has the ability to network and do law and client relations and negotiations, and party Y has the ability to do operations, financial analysis, HR, and financial planning, that's success. Because when you add your two guesses, the errors cancel out. When picking your partner, keep that in mind. I've had success in business picking partners. More recently, I've had non-success in picking partners. Okay, granted, it was because he had a bit of a mental breakdown, but regardless, I'm not talking with a perfect record. I am, however, saying that of the businesses I've had where I've had successful partners, every one of them have met the criteria of being very different from me in basic functionality. And it has had huge positive benefits. Let's talk name. Let's start turning to marketing. Actually, yeah, let's start turning to marketing a bit. So everyone's, and myself included, inclination upon going through law school and spending their time writing their exams and going through the hardships of everything else and then going ahead and opening up an office and paying rent is to say the Morris Law Firm is in operation. I'll call it the Morris and Morris Law Firm. I'll call it MJM Legal. I'll call it whatever it is, but it's going to have my name. My Jewish mother is going to be proud of my accomplishments come hell or high water. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And yet, that is absolutely the worst thing for a business that is starting out. And let's talk about why. So the very first thing I'm going to share with you is I'm going to take you to the end of your career. Okay, I know you're at the very beginning and all things look great, but I'm going to take you right to the end, because the end is unfortunately what you should be looking at the beginning and instructs what your name of your firm should be and the marketing of your firm, which we'll talk about. You see, at the end, you're going to be an old fart. I'm kind of starting to feel that way. And you're going to want to sell your firm that you've worked 50 years for, your firm for which there have been clients, and you yourself know of your accomplishments, and your spouse knows of the stories you've told and the great victories you've had at the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, and all of the things that have constituted your career. And you're so proud you've had a good life, you've made good money, and everything else has worked out. But now it comes time, you no longer can keep this open, you don't have the energy, that's it, you want to sell. And so you take your beautiful pumpkin that you've worked for 50 years on, and you say, let me sell it to someone. And some young whippersnapper comes up and says, oh yeah, I'll buy your files. Do you know what they're going to buy them for? 0.8 of revenue. That's what the average firm sells for, if you are lucky enough to sell. So to be clear, when you have a tech business, you sell for 10 times, not revenue, you sell for 10 times net. So your revenues minus your expenses, 8 times that is what a good tech firm sells for. 4 times is what a good functioning business sells for. 3 times or 2 times is what a good functioning restaurant sells for. Professional services sell for 0.8. If you sell at all, which most people do not. Why? Well, because, and Inderjit, please don't take this as an offense. Again, I had my firm called MJM Legal. I'm not saying to you you're different than all of us. I just want to point it out. It's because when Demon Law sells to someone, the very first question the client is going to ask is, where the hell is Demon? Where is my Demon? Where is the person whose name is on the firm? You can't transfer something bigger than yourself if you yourself are the name of the firm. There is a reason I'm called legalclosing.ca. There is a reason that my last firm was called Access Law. There is a reason for brands. There is a reason to name your firm something other than yourself. And that is to assist you in transcending yourself for the purposes, who cares about ego, for the purposes of sale. Because that way you can, when I sold Access Law, no one knew. People found out about it years later. Because I was no longer part of it, but who cares? Because Access was bigger than Mark. That's the goal of a business. And if you're setting up your business with your last name, you are intentionally tying your feet to the impossibility standard of actually being able to sell beyond. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions so far? I'm going to keep going. Otherwise, I have a lot to say.
No.
No, we're good. All right. I'm just going to stop for a second because I know that other people have joined, and maybe I'm just going to give one or two more opportunities to other people to introduce themselves. I know Joe and Norman and Ravinder have not yet introduced yourself. Guys, do you want to take 2 seconds, unmute yourself, and just tell us how many years out you've been and what areas you're practicing in? We're trying to keep this different than our normal sessions. We're trying to keep this collegial. Joe, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, hi. I'm just sorry, I was just multitasking. Yeah, so my focus is on real estate law. I've been doing it for about 2 or 3 years now, and of course, I like listening to Mark's talks. Very informative. My practice is based out of Peterborough and in Toronto as well. I'm working remotely from home, so you know. And I'm looking to maybe partner with another lawyer who may have a different area of law that would be interested in, you know, a partnership.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thank you, Joe. Norman?
Hi, I'm Norm McDonald. I've been practicing over 20 years. I've been the reason I'm sitting in on this seminar is I've been out of the country for the last 6 years. I was working as a senior Crown Counsel for the government of Bermuda, and sometimes the acting Solicitor General of Bermuda. So I've been out of touch with what's been going on in the Canadian legal landscape, and I've just started up my own practice in the last year and a half. By the time I got moved back from Bermuda and did my quarantine and had all my stuff shipped from Bermuda, I guess we were into sort of the middle of 2021. So that's where I'm at. The types of law that I do, I'm doing mostly tax dispute resolution. So anybody who's got a problem with the CRA, some spin-off tax and estate planning with that, and any sort of spin-off litigation that goes with that, such as there's often employment litigation, general commercial disputes, things like that. And I'm looking at forming either partnerships or strategic alliances with other lawyers, other firms. I'm interested in like-minded people who are interested in social media marketing. I recently got on TikTok. I've got about 8,000 followers now.
Nice.
And I don't even know how the platform works. Somebody just said you should be on TikTok, and so I just.
I'm going to actually talk about that. I'm going to talk about social media marketing as part of this as well.
Okay. Yeah. So a friend of mine who's not a lawyer, but who's into marketing, mentioned, "Oh, you should be on TikTok. It's going to be taking over YouTube." And I'd never even heard of it, and so I looked at the platform, and I was experimenting with it, and I put out a video just to see how the platform worked, and I didn't really expect any results. And it was a terrible video, I think, in terms of quality. I was walking down the street. I just had on a t-shirt on. It was a hot day. I was sweating. It looked like I needed a shower because it was hot. And I just put out the content. It was about whether you should sign a waiver when the CRA asks you to sign one. And I checked in a few days later, and I had like 15,000 views. So that convinced me that it doesn't matter what you look like or whatever. It's the content that people are interested in.
That's right. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that shortly. So I hope you don't mind, but that's excellent. I'm really glad you had that experience.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
that's what I'm about in shortly.
All right, Ravinder, can you just jump in just quickly? How many years are you out and what do you practice in? And then we'll keep going.
Okay, yeah. Hi, all of you. Good morning. My name is Ravinder Sadra, and I started in July 2021, and I'm practicing as a real estate lawyer and little bit immigration. Yeah, that's it. But I am looking forward to grow up.
Terrific. Okay, so guys, let's keep going. So we've talked about picking your partner, we've talked about picking your name. I want to just stay on picking your name for a second and talk about branding, because what we talked about was picking your business at the beginning. Remember, I said you're going to pick an underserviced market, a unique idea or a unique attribute. And then we said, okay, we're going to pick our name. The thing that bonds or that puts both of those two things together is branding. Now, branding is something that lawyers are freaking terrible at. They don't seem to understand that it is all that matters in this world. And yet branding is really critical. If any of you watch Mad Men, you'll know that the way branding used to be was, hey, you would tell someone what you're defining, what you did. So Mark Morris, real estate lawyer, and then you would just plaster that everywhere you could. But really good brands are aspirational. Really good brands try to tell you not what they do. Really good brands try to tell you what you are if you choose them. So when you buy an Apple computer, it's more than the computer. It's about the functionality, design, and simplicity of it. Those people who have an Apple computer are a certain type of person. Those people who go to Walt Disney World are not just expecting a Canada's Wonderland experience. They're expecting a magical experience that has nothing to do with the rides. It has nothing to do with the princesses. Yeah, it has to do with magic. Rolex is about luxury. These are brands, they matter. And the branding process is not about just getting something that looks good. It's about something that speaks to who you are. One of the most brilliant brands that exists is, of course, FedEx. They kind of hammered this home a long time ago. Anybody ever really looked at the FedEx logo? Maybe some of you have, maybe you haven't. You'll never look at it the same way after this talk. It's brilliant. Because if you take a look, see this white arrow, the one that I'm hovering over? Probably, maybe you haven't noticed that before. That arrow tells you everything you need to know about FedEx in a single image. You are English speakers. You read from left to right. Go from the beginning to the end. That is exactly what FedEx does. It delivers a package from left to right, from start to finish. And so you see it's not an error. This is Arabic, where they read from right to left. You see the arrow reversed. Of course, FedEx is an old brand, and now many people have done better. Take a look at the Amazon brand. The Amazon brand is even more brilliant. So similar to FedEx, it has an arrow, and they deliver everything from A to Z, everything. They do everything, and they do it, and they make you happy. See that? Single brand, but it contains all of the aspects of who they are. Understanding who you are and branding yourself is really critical. And it's something you need to give attention to when you're starting out your firm, because these points become aspirational to who you are and answer the question, what value am I providing to consumers? Now, let's talk about value. Let me turn my attention, because so many of you are real estate lawyers. Let me disabuse you of something that I really want to drill into your heads. I promise you it will have been worth your hour hearing this one point. If you take nothing else from what I'm about to say, let me tell you this. You are going to hear throughout your career as small-time lawyers, if that's what you choose to be, that your clients are cost sensitive. You're going to hear it over and over and over again, that you can't charge too much, that your clients don't want to pay, that you're constantly having discussions. I am here to tell you definitively that is wrong. You won't believe me until you try it, but it's totally wrong. It's this massive misperception that exists in law today, that clients are cost sensitive. And it's hysterical in real estate that we even have this discussion, because you know it's hysterical. You know it's hysterical because you just witnessed someone pay 5% commission on a $2 million property, and you're negotiating with them for $50. What is going on? What is happening? And don't get me wrong, I've had these discussions many, many times with clients, but I don't anymore. I don't anymore. And the reason is, and here's what you came to the session for, I'm going to give you the line that I want you to remember. It is not that your clients are cost sensitive. It is that they are price sensitive. Now, I'm going to explain the difference, because understanding this difference is critical to actually being able to bill massively. I charge excuse my Yiddish, and there's a small group here. I charge a shit ton on every single real estate deal. A lot. I make a lot of money on every real estate deal. Way, 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 way more than the average. And no one ever walks away from me. Why? Because I have identified that clients, okay, granted, I'm somewhat senior in the profession, so people want to use me and they're ready to pay, and there's that facet. But more importantly, I've identified that so long as you properly prepare your clients for the cost of the transaction, you have answered their concern. Their concern is not what they will pay. Their concern is that you are going to pull that lawyer shit that every lawyer does, where they say, oh, but by the way, there's X, Y, and Z. And the moment you do that, you are entering into a point where they are scared. A realtor doesn't do this. A realtor says, no, it's 5%. That's it. You know what you're going to pay. There's nothing more. Done. 5%. And that's the reason they can charge 5%. But a lawyer doesn't. A lawyer says, oh, my fee is $4.99. And then we have the following disbursements. And here's a list of disbursements. I'll be very blunt with you about what the disbursements are. Here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go. And you know what happens to the clients? Clients look like this, and then their eyes glaze over, and they say, what the hell? Like, how much is this going to come to? I don't understand what title insurance is. What are you talking about? Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. You know what I do at my firm? I say, here's the price you're going to see at the end of the day, to the penny. It doesn't matter if it's over or it's under. This is what you're going to pay. And by the way, I'm just going to share this with you. I, as a result, can charge 45% more than the average, specifically because I'm avoiding surprise. I know what my costs are. So why do I have to break it down for them? Why do I have to tell them what disbursement costs are and what title insurance are? None of that. This is how much you will pay. And that's how much they see at the end of the day. I have no discussion about the price, because at the very beginning of my engagement, I say, this is how much money I am making. You will pay land transfer tax in addition, and and it comes to this, and that's it. And suddenly, customers who are not cost sensitive but are price sensitive have no price sensitivity, because there's never an extra. Now, are there times where you have more or less that you're going to have to spend on a file? Sure, but that's called cost averaging. Just take it, eat it. As long as you're making 45% more on a file, who cares if on one file you have a 5% decline? Doesn't matter. Understand your costs so your clients don't need to. And price it at the get-go with your head held high, but give them full understanding of what the cost is. Not detailed 17 pages or even 1 page with a whole bunch of expenses. They're not going to understand it.
Yep.
Single line item. This is what it will cost. You avoid the uncertainty that is price sensitivity, price change sensitivity. And you will be able to charge more than you ever dreamed possible. So that's what I'm going to say to you about pricing in commoditized fields. You can decommoditize yourself that way. I don't say that very often, by the way, and I say that only to young lawyers, because frankly, I don't like giving away magic sauce all the time. But you guys have been good enough to be here for this hour, and so I'm sharing this with you. I mean, my pricing is right on my website. You can see how it works. It's not very hard. It's directly on the front page, but no one balks. Melanie just asked, Mark, have you seen though that there is price shopping more and more primarily in the real estate market, even promoted by real estate agents? To some degree, when you're early on in your career, that is the case. But as you develop expertise in an area, your pricing, even if there's a bit of a premium, becomes insulated by who you are. So yes, I'm very well aware that when I say no one walks from me, the same will not be true for people who are 2 years out, just because you don't have a reputation to rely on. And I get it, but you will find that it is true 85% of the time still. So I get it that real estate agents promote it. And when someone comes to me and says, can you reduce your price? I often have a thing where I'm like, well, you're coming from this agent, so I'll take $100 off my price as a friends and family discount. I do have that kind of in my back pocket, but I never reduce it more, ever. And I only do that where someone is genuinely coming from a trusted referral source. And that's primarily so that the referrers feel that they get a pat on the back by being my friend. It's not about the clients. Clients don't care what you charge them. They just don't. I know this is contrary to what you've experienced. I get it. I understand. I've been a real estate lawyer for 25 years. I remember what the beginning is. I know that what I'm saying to you doesn't seem right. But have you truly ever just tried to charge whatever the frig you want and actually just stood your ground and said, this is what it is? You know what I charge on a sale? You know what I charge on a sale? Here, I'm going to tell you what I charge on a sale because it's right on my website. So I routinely do multi-million-dollar ones. So I do $2 million. Let's do a $2 million sale. Okay, I'll do a $1,500,000 sale. On a $1.5 million sale, I'm charging $3,672.50 every time. Every time. Now, all my costs are built into that. But guys, doing 6 deals today, 3 are sales. All at that cost. And I've told them exactly what that pricing is right at the very beginning of the session. They agreed to it. Said, here it is, guys. They don't care. I'm going to get back to them with exactly what it is I told them I would charge them. No problem with Law Society compliance. They've agreed.
I'm sorry, Mark, I must have missed what you just said. On a 1.5 mil sale, you're charging $3,000 without pushback.
$3,672.50.
And could that be attributed maybe to where your client base is coming from?
Yes, yes, it is. And my expertise and my reputation, all of that is true. But I assure you, you don't need to be at $3,672. You could just take 30% over what you're charging right now. As long as you are realizing the difference between cost sensitivity and cost and pricing, then you will be fine. Take away the thing that customers don't like. What they don't like is surprise. And you can get away with murder. Not murder, you can be paid properly for your product so you can actually live a life and be a professional. Stop listening to what other people have to say about this subject. Stop nickeling and diming yourself. Hold yourself up high and address your clients' concerns. They don't know what their concern is. The Henry Ford thing, if I had asked my clients what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. They don't understand what they want, but what they actually want is no surprises. So don't give them a surprise. Single line item, this is what it will cost.
I'll endorse what you said based on my experience with a colleague of mine that was called, let's say, just a month before me. So basically around the same timeline. And she charges like, $500 plus more on what I normally charge. And I was like, how is it that she's able to do that? And so I started experimenting with that, Mark. And yes, I totally get what you're saying.
Guys, I've made $10,000 on sales. Like I have multi-million, I have $5-6 million properties. Like my purchases, I make thousands of dollars. No one cares. No one cares. They care about price sensitivity. look, I don't say this very often. I don't actually have this discussion with a lot of people, but you guys are young. You guys are taking your hour. I'm telling you what the gold is. Understand how pricing works in this industry and stop paying attention to those people who are competing on that basis, because it's a lose-lose. You need to make your money in order to actually build this. All right, let's keep moving on. So we talked about pricing. Let's talk about staffing. Let's talk about staffing up. So let me answer a couple of questions for you that you don't have, you probably realize you need the answers to, but you never really thought someone would give you. So the answer is 30 deals. When you hit 20 deals a month, that's when you can technically take someone on. When you hit 25 deals a month, routinely, month over month, that's when you should be considering your first staff. Your staff can handle, a good staff can handle 40 deals a month, no more. That's top staff from start to finish. Assuming that your law firm is not credit, I'm talking about real estate here. Assuming that your law firm has not broken down the components of a closing into various areas. So some law firms, like big law firms, have an intake staff. They have a reporting staff. They have, I'm assuming you're using a traditional law firm where a clerk is running a file from start to finish. If that's the case, a senior law clerk should be taking no more than 40 deals per month. Now, everyone is able to put 60 deals on a clerk. The problem is if you do that month over month, you will find that that clerk gets totally overwhelmed and that your system breaks down. A senior clerk should be taking on no more than 40 deals a month. A junior clerk should be taking on no more than 25, and a mid-sized clerk should be taking on between 30 and 35. In terms of the pricing for your clerking staff, I'm talking about law clerks only right now. I'm not talking about the other staff that make up a law firm. You can get people who will work for $45,000 a year, but those people will never stay with you, and even the good ones will quickly exceed that. Generally, as a matter of course, I will not take people on less than $60,000 a year. My top clerks are paid significantly more than that because they basically run the show, and I want to keep them. Top clerks in this industry usually make between $75,000 and $80,000 once they hit their prime. Some of them are making 90 at the larger firms, but you can keep someone for a lifetime at $80,000, just FYI. And again, 40 deals a month, every month. So just FYI, that's how the pricing and how the clerking and staffing work. Generally, getting a good bookkeeper is incredibly important. We could talk about the technologies that they use. I, as a matter of course, I'm not going to talk about technology today because I have a lot of other things to talk about, but what I will say is this: I use QuickBooks for my firm. People often say, why do you do that? There's better systems for lawyers. And my answer is, I do that because the vast majority of this world use QuickBooks. Sorry, can you just hold on one second? The vast majority of this world uses QuickBooks, and what that means is that anyone is, the whole world is my oyster. I don't need to use a legal bookkeeper in order to do my books. I can use any number of bookkeepers, and because I run 3 or 4 businesses at the same time, usually, and most of those are non-legal businesses, it helps to have a single bookkeeper that can go over all of my books, and as a result, QuickBooks is what I opt for every time. Having said that, there's a lot of good systems. Bookkeepers, however, should be definitely part of your team from day one. As a matter of course, once you get to 50 deals a month, your bookkeeper should be in once a week. Law Society regulations are that you have to do reconciliations every 30 days, and that's fine so long as you have 20 deals a month or less. If you have more than 20 deals, it's critical that you move to a bi-weekly reconciliation. And by the time you're at 30 deals or 35 deals, you should be at weekly reconciliations just to make sure that there is no problem. Because the worst thing in your life is going to be when you discover that there is a mistake for hundreds of thousands of dollars that you need to recapture. And by the way, it happens to all of us, but the quicker you find it out, the easier it is to rectify. Weekly reconciliations is really where you want to get to. And as a result, your bookkeeper should be, and the easiest thing for them to do is obviously with online systems. So please don't use PC law. Like anyone who's using PC law should be shot in the head. All right. Let's talk about implementation. So here, I'm going to share my screen. I gave a lot of talks, by the way, about starting up businesses. These are just things that I've stolen from some of those talks. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is, lawyers have a problem because we all go through law school and we all believe that, we're God's gift to man because we're able to be perfect about everything. And the truth is that businesses don't run by perfection. They just don't. No business does. And law is a business as much as anything else. You're going to screw things up. Launch, and then use Kaizen. Kaizen is a process of continual improvement. It was first done by Toyota. When I built my first substantial business, something I haven't talked about, someone came to me he was a senior manager at Dell, and he brought me a block of wood as a gift. And he brought me some sanding paper. And he said, I'm doing what what the CEO of a major company said to him when he started out his business. He said, I'm giving you a block and the block has nothing on it and you have a piece of sandpaper. It's like your job is to sand this block and to never stop sanding this block and make sure that you create a Da Vinci out of it. And that's what business is. Business is taking a block of poop and carving it into magic. And you never stop carving. There are a whole bunch of people who will put off launching a business for 6 months until everything is perfect, until their website is perfect, until, don't do that. Don't do that. Get a friggin' website up in 30 seconds and then change it and alter it and live your business. You are not doing anything by holding off on the prep. Get launched, get started, and improve, and you will screw up. And by the way, your law pro is there for that very reason. You might even screw up bad enough to actually invoke them. I'm not trying to tell you to screw up and be negligent. I'm trying to say to you, launch, figure it out, improve, and get better. But do so in the crucible of experience, not in the crucible of hope. It's critical that you actually be building a business which is improving in tandem with client complaints. And client feedback is the most valuable aspect that you have to actually getting anything done. I'm going to share a story with you about Access Law. Access Law started in 2012. And at the time, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. I was a small-time real estate lawyer and had never done a will, God knows what. And we set up in Walmart and volume started coming in. Do you know what the success rate is for retail? Anyone want to guess? What do you think you need in terms of success, satisfaction, in order to succeed in retail? Throw out a guess. What percent? Come on, no one's going to get it, so you just guess, doesn't matter.
25%.
95%? You say
No,
8?
I said lower, 25. I went in lower.
25%, okay. Who wants to take another guess? Just throw out a number, guys. All right, I'm good. All right, fine. In order to be successful in retail, you need to have a basic success rate of 99.3%. Here's why. Every time someone is not satisfied with a pair of underwear that they buy from Walmart, they return it. And when they return it, they have to then line up at the customer service queue. And they then have to take the underwear and they have to reverse the entire order chain and put it back on the shelf. That takes a tremendous amount of work. Plus, your client is dissatisfied for any number of reasons and won't come back. It is a truism that the bullwhip effect exists in professional services as much as it does for goods. What's the bullwhip effect? The bullwhip effect is the idea that when you whip a bullwhip, minor variations at the beginning of the process translate into huge variations as you go. It's critical that your success rates be close to retail. At Access Law, in our first year, our client satisfaction rate was 67%. I spent my entire year dealing with customer complaints. The next year, it was 82%. The following year, it was 86%. These are still terrible numbers, terrible, terrible. I spent 4 years of my life dealing with people telling me I was a moron and that they hated my guts. But we Kaizened. Every single day we improved. Every single time someone complained, we were listening. Every time someone said you should be doing this, we thought about how to do it. And we improved and we improved and we improved. And now when you look at Access Law's record online, you'll see that we have 4.7 stars out of 5. Similarly for my other businesses that I've sold. All of them hit those metrics, but only after time. And you have to put up with a lot. Like if you take a look at some of the comments that are on me about online of lawyer ratings or whatever it is, like they were from our bad years at Access. All of them are true. Don't try to even refute them. They're all true. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is get better and make sure that by the end you succeed and that you have a good life and you charge. And so I'm here to tell you, you're at the beginning of your career. Consider this session your block and your sandpaper. Your job is to refine that and get it proper and get your process going year over year until such time as you're looking at a Da Vinci. All right, let's talk about marketing. When you market, it's critical that you be true to who you are. If you are not true to who you are, if you're sitting there and saying, I'm the nicest person on the planet, but you're actually a son of a bitch, then you're gonna fail. This is, by the way, true in life. There's something called the authenticity of self. It's actually a whole study of psychology, where you basically, if you are true to who you are, if you know who you are, if you are not putting up a pretense to the world because you're something else and you believe that the world sees you as a certain way and thus you are acting that way, you will make it through this life unscathed. Those people who are most unhappy, those people who have the most psychological issues, are those people who are acting, those people who are pretending to be something they are not. Be true to yourself, and after you pick your focus, express that truism to your audience. So all of you are here today because you're part of my Facebook forum that has 11,000 people on it. What the heck is going on there? Why have people congregated on this forum and not others? Let's think about that. Well, it's because every day I and others go on there and speak genuinely about our experiences. Nothing I am saying, I don't have any worries. Everything I'm saying to you right now is true. It's who I am. It's what I've done. There's nothing that, and as a result, you guys are going to remember me. When you guys are established in your career, you're going to think back to this event or others, and you're going to say, oh yeah, I know that guy. Or if you run into a problem, you're going to say, oh yeah, maybe we should call Mark with this. I have this idea, whatever it may be. All of that stems from the fact that when I am communicating to you, you believe what I'm saying as something genuine. Now, we live in a world that is vastly different than the world that I inhabited when I started my career. We live in a world of performance. We live in a world of where every single person has two very distinct identities: who they are and who they pretend to be online, which is the polar opposite of the authenticity of self to which I was referring. But it doesn't need to be that way. I find that the easiest thing, the thing that drags in attention from social media, is when you are true to who you are and what you were talking about. So Norm, you mentioned TikTok. TikTok is one of the most viral of services.
Yep.
The reason I don't do it, by the way, is because I don't find that there's money on TikTok. I find even though Facebook is a dying platform, every person who has money is on Facebook because they're 40 and 50 and whatever it is. Same thing with Twitter. Those are why I pick those venues. But everyone I know who I respect is now exploring TikTok. And there's good reason for that, by the way, because TikTok is the future. The people who don't have money today will have money very shortly and will be the buying products and everything else. God, I wish I had a presence there. Snapchat too. But what you described was very authentic. You were talking about how you didn't look good. Well, Norm, do you usually look good when you wake up in the morning, when you go make yourself breakfast? You look kind of like a normal human being, right? Like when you gave your talk.
That's
Right.
exactly why I think it got a lot of response. It looked like this isn't some sleazy lawyer that people have the impression of. This is some ordinary guy walking down the street in a t-shirt and just talking about something not scripted, off the top of my head. And it was off the top of my head. I was just trying to see how the platform worked.
Every time you put on a suit as a lawyer, you know, suits are going the way of the dodo. Formal dress is going the way of the dodo, but that's because authenticity is prized by millennials. Being genuine to who you are is part and parcel of a proper marketing experience at this point, much more so than the pretense that used to come with professionalism. And we have to adopt that. I have a good friend, David Feld, who is quite big on TikTok. I think he has like 100,000 followers now. You know what he talks about on his TikTok channel? You know what he talks about? Money. Not how to make money. How much he's enjoying his money from real estate. How much he's enjoying his fancy cars, his fancy planes, how he's enjoying his fancy renovations. You know why? You know why that works? I mean, he talks about law as well. You should go check out his channel. It's funny. You know why that works? It works because everyone understands that people like money. It's true. It's true. People go into law because they think that there's money there. So the public is looking at this lawyer living a good life, getting high because he runs a marijuana company too, you know, and living a fun life and rolling in funds. And that is the life he's living. But it's true. There was a time 20 years ago where every person would have said, keep that shit to yourself. Put your suit on, keep that shit to yourself. And yet David has 100,000 followers of people who want to see him roll around like Scrooge McDuck in a bathtub full of coins, because that's what they prize. They prize the authenticity, the real, which David is giving them. It's critical that whatever social media environment that you interact with, you do so genuinely, not artificially. Now, this matters because there's going to be any number of people who come to you and say, I can help you with SEO, I can help you with God knows what or anything else. And every single time they do that, you're going to sit there and appear in a suit and you're going to say, all right, here's what I do and here's where I am. And none of that is genuine. None of that speaks to who you are or why people should use you, right? If you are an aggressive son of a bitch as a lawyer, then you should get on TikTok in the morning and talk about how you're going to destroy and possibly castrate your opponents today. Check back with me at the end of the day, and I'm going to tell you how I destroyed them. Does it make sense? Is this what your parents taught you? No. But Martin Scorsese, other than going to law, going to jail for his activities, dragged in the viewers because it was who he was. Because raising prices on insulin patients was genuinely what this guy was about. I'm not saying to you should aspire to do this. God, like the guy is ridiculous. But it was true to who he was. Now, when you combine that with blowhards like Gary Vee, by the way, I spent a lovely evening with in CES 2 years ago in Las Vegas at a party called Party with a Llama, and I didn't understand it until I walked in and there was just literally a llama walking around a pool. It was very, very weird. Anyways, Gary Vee, who is an online media maven, uses a lot of words to say one thing, which is figure out who you are, be genuine to yourself. He doesn't say those parts, and post a shit ton. The goal is to never stop producing content. You must be like your millennial people. You must be online all the time. You must post, you must post, you must post. Not the way I do it, where I say, hey, once a week or once every month or something, we're going to do a session. No, if you're doing TikTok and you want to be genuine, then Norm, you should always be walking around in that same stained t-shirt, always walking around the streets of Toronto, and you should be doing those things once a day. Why?
I do more. I do Donald Trump impressions and Johnny Depp impressions as well, and that gets about 15,000 views as well.
Because that's genuine. Because a person in a suit that's sitting in a law office wouldn't be doing that. Yeah. But that's your personality, and so it's coming out. In a world of social media, pretending to be something you are not is a death knell. The only thing you can do is talk to people and be genuine. And if you are, people will follow. And that's the rules of social media. Now, don't any one of you please advertise in newspapers or anything else. That's dead media. Anyone who turns to you about SEO is usually bullshitting you. I wouldn't really think too much about it. Social media has somewhat equalized the playing field. You can go ahead and create your own grounds. It's a perfect setting for figuring out who you are and building your own brand. And I strongly suggest you start there. And once you've done that, then there's any number of other ways you can take that brand. But first, develop out your brand using the social media platforms. It's one of the greatest facilities that we have available today to build out business. I do almost all my business through social media, whether it be Twitter or Facebook or anything else. So we're at 11 o'clock. I have more to say, but don't have time to say it because I try to keep to the hour. Do you guys have any questions? I'll hang around for 5 more minutes. Do you guys have any questions as we go? Right, should we include HST in the final price? I guess that's from the pricing discussion. I'm going to leave that to you. I can't give you all the answers. You figure out your own way forward. Any other questions, guys?
So Mark, first of all, thank you so much. I must tell you that this has been one of the most useful sessions that I've had in my 2 years. You've opened my eyes to a number of things, so thank you. And I wish that you could, perhaps organize more sessions, especially for us young lawyers, to drill down in the various areas that we can cover. Maybe, if we do everything, we might not be able to cover it in the 1 hour, as we've seen. But question for you, and this perhaps might be, for me, I have done everything so far virtually. What are the pros and cons?
I missed that. You cut out. You've done everything what?
Virtually.
Okay.
What are the pros and cons, for example, of having a physical space versus what I've done? What would be your recommendation?
Melanie, remind me, you're real estate only?
You know what? Real estate, wills, family, and some immigration. But
Look, I believe in an office. I'm at my office right now. I believe in an office because I just find that it's very hard for me to maintain. I have a family. I love my family, and I don't want to mix business and pleasure. So for me, it is my way of dividing business and pleasure. I like an office. An office matters to people who are 40 and above as well, because it is a sign of prestige and location, and people who are 40 and above expect it. That will not be the norm. It's not like people who are 30 turning 40 are suddenly going to demand an office. There is a renewed understanding that perhaps offices are no longer the be all and end all, and that will become increasingly the case as you kind of move through your career. So I don't know that there's any major advantage in taking on an office, especially given the costs. I would, however, tell you that because real estate is one of the ways of creating wealth, one of the things you should be concentrating on early is purchasing whatever it is that you're buying. Set up in a crappy area, doesn't matter. Buy cheap, don't care. Make it a condo, fine, don't care. Just don't pay rent. You are building a business. There is huge advantage to actually being able to own your real estate. Try to own your real estate early in your career. You'll thank me for it. It's the best advice you can have. It could be small, it could be whatever, but just try to get yourself a purchase as opposed to a rent if you're going to be setting up. This is coming from someone who at one point rented 14 offices at the same time for my law firm. Trust me, rent is killer.
Awesome.
All right, what else, guys?
You mentioned Twitter and Facebook. Do you recommend being across multi-platforms in social media, or just focusing on one? I know Gary Vee, I follow him actually, and he's like be on all the platforms, but I find it's very time consuming to make a video and write a.
The problem is not that you shouldn't be on all platforms. I am
Yeah.
outside of Snapchat because no one of my friends here is on Snapchat. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on all of them.
Yeah.
But I concentrate only on Facebook and Twitter. There's a difference between being on the all so that you are familiar with the dialogue and the discourse.
Right.
And so that you can be aware and concentrating on them. I don't know how one can possibly build an audience in multiple forums. Not to say people don't, people do.
Right.
But given how hard it is to get your audience, it's really important that you cultivate it, pick your setting. I would strongly suggest if you're going to do this, that you don't start on Facebook. Facebook is a dying platform. It's just a dying.
Right. Yeah.
Twitter is where everyone is, even despite Elon's best efforts, and he'll be gone in a year anyways because he's running it into the ground financially. So Twitter is definitely up there for sure. TikTok is up there, although TikTok is also nothing like Snap, and like Be Real and others are where everyone is now concentrating their time. You have to be abreast. I'll give you one piece of advice, which is this. Everything builds on everything else. When social media first came out, no one understood that it would become the behemoth that it was. It was just another thing. It is critical that in every time, I never understood having a camera on a phone. Never made sense to me. Just when it came out, I was like, what's a camera on a phone? But I got it and started using it because that's what the technology was. Never say no to technology and never say I don't need it, because technologies build on one another. And as a result, if you're left out of one of the stages, you will be forever left out of developments going forward. All parents all fall subject to this eventually. Try to preserve your longevity by engaging with this world, not by shutting it out. Gary Vee is correct that you should be on all social media platforms so you're aware of what's going on and you could turn your attention to what is next. It's critical. But having said that, developing out multiple platforms at the same time is a near impossible task. I find it hard enough to do one or two.
Well, I am on, I'm on Instagram, I am on YouTube. I just find that I am on Facebook. I just find that it's time consuming to prepare a piece of content and then re-edit it for the other platform. And in terms of returns of the time, I just find TikTok is a better medium for me. I mean,
TikTok is also a more viral medium. TikTok,
yeah.
It's much easier to go viral on TikTok than any of the other forums.
Yeah, I just found, well, I just told you about my first video. I wasn't even expecting anything. I was just trying out the platform to see how it worked. And, you know, a few days later, you got 15,000 views because people liked the message that I was sending. It, you know, it didn't matter what I looked like. I didn't need glossy, you know, PowerPoints or anything like that. They just looked, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about.
You also have the advantage of pleasing the Chinese government. So, I mean, there's all sorts of things there.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. But yeah, I find it time consuming. I enjoy doing it. But yeah, if I had to spread myself across all platforms, it might be spreading myself too thin. So
yeah, just have visibility into all platforms, choose your platforms and engage. But if I was starting out now, I would be starting into Snap, and I'd be not that I can, I'm too old. My friends aren't on Snap, but TikTok. TikTok and Snap are the two platforms, and you need to know Twitter. You need to know Twitter. Twitter needs to be in the background of everything.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as well. Yeah.
Twitter is something. All right. Anything else, guys? Any last question? Time for one more, and then we'll turn out. That's it.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
What do you find to be a really good platform for saving all your documents, given the large volume of work that you're doing?
Yeah, I don't, my real estate practice kind of runs itself now. So I just use like Closer and I use Google Drive. I don't make it complex. When I was running large firms, I used Salesforce, and I used Salesforce to store my files too. I did that for security reasons. I could go into it, but basically Salesforce was my platform when I built out Access Law. I intentionally chose not to do that here. I don't care as much. I don't have a very complex system. I have CRMs in the form of conveyancer systems, and then I basically use Google Drive to save documents. It's not very well thought out, but it works, and I don't really care anymore because I'm not going for volume. It's different. I run a different organization today. If I was running for volume, I'd be setting up with Salesforce again.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, guys. Well, look, thank you for coming. I wish I had the sethel. That's the Yiddish word for brains. I wish I had the sethel when I was early in my career to actually listen to people who had done things. I didn't. And as a result, it put back my career by many, many years. And I was stubborn. I was a bit of an idiot, and it took me a long time to actually overcome that. Good on you for actually doing this. I wish you the very best with your careers. And of course, if you have any questions as you're kind of going forward, feel free. My door is always open. I'm happy to chat. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
My best, guys.